I want to begin by asking you this question about Lebanon. Since you're from Lebanon and you know a lot about the region, in recent times we've seen the Israelis exerting their power in the region, and one particular case is Lebanon. What is the next step for Lebanon after the whole war with Hezbollah and still with Israeli troops on Lebanese territory? What is the political situation in Lebanon?
Well, at the moment, we have basically an impasse. There's a major divide between various Lebanese political parties and their supporters. The Israelis made sure to create this kind of sedition and division inside the Lebanese state. You have to understand, we haven't finished with the war. The war is not over yet between Lebanon and the Israeli entity. Israel continues to occupy Lebanese territories in South Lebanon and basically southeast of Lebanon as well. And the Israelis continue to aggress the Lebanese on a daily basis. Yesterday, they carried out of what you call airstrikes, and that left basically one person martyred, dozens of people who got injured. All of them are civilians, none of them are fighters. And the Israelis are not stopping at all. For the time being, the Americans were trying to pressure the Lebanese to agree to disarm the resistance in Lebanon. And the Lebanese basically amended the American paper in which basically they said, if we are going to disarm anybody outside the scope of the government powers, what we need to do is basically we need to see the Israelis stop their aggression. That's the first priority. The second one is basically see the Israelis withdraw from all Lebanese territories. Then the Lebanese government will have the ability to spread its authority across all Lebanese territories and strengthen the army in order to do what you call disarm all armed factions outside the state. And that includes the resistance. They didn't say resistance, they said Hezbollah. The funny part is that Hezbollah is not the only resistance in Lebanon. We have multiple resistance factions, including Amal movement, including the Communist Party, the SSMP, and others who fight under one umbrella. But because the Israelis see Hezbollah as the only or one or the main to them in terms of like training, the strategic arms that they have, they want to disarm Hezbollah. That's why the Americans like sleep and wake up saying Hezbollah all the time. For the Israelis, it's Hezbollah. So currently we have an impasse because some of the Lebanese are right-wing groups who used to be with the Israelis during the civil war. The Israeli entity had armed them and trained them throughout the 1970s and 1980s. And those people basically are now pushing towards the disarmament of Hezbollah. And they're doing the job that the Israelis were not able to do, which is create internal pressure towards the disarmament of the resistance. The majority or the bulk of the Lebanese population, the other part, is against disarming the resistance so long that there's an occupation, so long that there's an aggression, and so long that the Israelis say that the greater Israel basically includes all of Lebanon. So there's always a threat from the Israeli side. So this is the situation at the moment.
Yeah, so pressure that Israel is putting is not just on Hezbollah, but also on the government to force the disarming of Hezbollah. But how does that help the Lebanese state? Is it for the best interest of Lebanon, or is it political actors within Lebanon trying to use that as well to muscle other opponents like Hezbollah and Amal and the other groups you mentioned? But why Hezbollah? You know, you said there are other groups and factions within the state. Is it because of the ideology? Is it because of the links to Iran? Why Hezbollah? And is it in the best interest of the Lebanese state?
Well, the thing is, so long that you have an occupation that continues to threaten you and openly says that it wants all of the Lebanese territories as part of Greater Israel, it's never in the Lebanese government's or state's basically interest to disarm its resistance on the ground. You need what you call a backbone that supports the army at any point, because the Lebanese army is very weak in terms of, it's poor, not weak, it's poor in terms of strategic arms. It's not allowed to have strategic arms. And that's by an international decision that was made by the Americans, the French, the Germans, and the British, who, whenever the Lebanese at any point would acquire something that's strategic, they would ban it from actually acquiring it. I'll give you an example. In 2009, the Russians actually offered Lebanon 10 brand new fighter jets for free as an offer, with 5 years maintenance for free and training. If we had those fighter jets, it would have changed part of the narrative, because we would our pilots are one of the top pilots in the world. They go and train in the US, they train everywhere, and they come in first in terms of all the pilots who go around basically to the US or other countries and train over there. So we don't have fighter jets. What we have is like 8 Super Tucano basically, I'm going to call them birds because they're very peaceful. They can only engage at a certain distance and at a very, what you call, low speed. They are no match to the F-16s, F-18s, F-35s at any point. And they don't have all the strategic missiles that are supposed to be mounted on them because the Americans don't allow us. So at the end of the day, we don't have an air force. We have few helicopters from the Soviet Union era, old ones. That's it. So when you look at the whole situation, we don't have an air force. We don't have air defenses systems. We don't have what you call long-range missiles or medium-range missiles at any point. What we have is short-range missiles. So the army is trained in Lebanon to fight street fights or guerrilla warfare. And this is its strength. It doesn't fight like a traditional army. So it can easily take out the Israelis if they invade Lebanon. But the problem is with the strategic weapons, the Israelis are advanced technologically. They have the best technology in the world because 57 states and the NATO states give them that technology. They have all the weapons and strategic weapons in the world. And they know that if the Lebanese army gets this kind of armament, it will beat them. So that's why the Israelis had pressured the international community to ban the Lebanese army from having strategic weapons. Whereas Hezbollah, for example, it has long-range missiles. I know from 2006, when I covered the Israeli aggression on Lebanon, back in July 2006 and July and August, I remember very clearly that Hezbollah had what you call the 400-kilometer range missiles. And they had basically medium-range missiles as well. So they could easily reach what you call beyond Tel Aviv and beyond Haifa, all the way down to, for example, Eilat, Rashrash, to the southernmost part of the Israeli entity, and even beyond. And remember, during the beginning of this war on Lebanon in 2023, they were giving what you call aid to the Israelis, and Hezbollah and the Lebanese resistance threatened Cyprus. If you continue to support the Israelis, we're going to target you and any entity that supports the Israelis. And that's when the Cypriots actually backed off because they know that Hezbollah has this kind of missiles that can actually reach Cyprus. It was the Cypriot president who came out and said, we're not taking part in this war and we're neutral. Having said, the Israelis want to disarm Hezbollah and the Americans want to disarm Hezbollah to safeguard the Israeli occupation in terms of the next invasion of Lebanon. Remember, the Israelis have invaded Lebanon 3 times in the past. The first time was the 1967 war, which Lebanon had no hand in it. And people claim that basically, no, Lebanon was part of the Arab states attacking Israel. No. Israel had a fight with 3 Arab states, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan. And Miko Pelet's own father, who he was a general in the Israeli army, he said Lebanon had no hand in this war, but we attacked it because they wanted to take parts of South Lebanon. The second invasion happened in 1978, after which the international community established UNIFIL, United Nations Interim Forces in South Lebanon, which were supposed to be what you call a buffer zone between us and the Israelis, but they stayed inside Lebanese territories rather than the Israeli side or the occupied Palestinian side. And there is always between them and this on how they act on the ground. And in 1982, again, the Israelis invaded Lebanon, despite the fact that the US had given assurances to Lebanon 4 months beforehand through its envoy at that time, Philip Habib, that the Israelis are not going to invade Lebanon. 4 months later, the Israelis invaded Lebanon, and that was in June 2000 and June 1982. So with this kind of history repeating itself with this enemy, disarming the resistance becomes something that's stupid and not strategic enough. The army understands that very well. There is somebody inside the government who belongs to the right-wing groups who is trying to push along with the Americans and the Israelis towards the disarmament of the resistance. I think it's going to take time. It will cause some friction, but I have assurances within the army and the resistance that there's not going to be any pitting of one against the other. So even if the government tries to actually pit the army versus the resistance, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, speaking of that, before we move to the next question, I saw a high level from Iran recently that came into Beirut. No other government official met them except representatives from Hezbollah. And
No,
during the course of
that's not
this
true.
meeting, no,
They
no,
actually met with parliament speaker.
the-
The first parliament speaker is the second. It's like considered the second president in Lebanon.
okay. So the Speaker of Parliament is he, for Hezbollah? Is he from
He
the
is the
group?
leader of Amal movement. So he's basically
Exactly.
the second, one of the resistance on the ground.
Yeah, basically, so allies of Iran. What I mean. So
Okay, allies of
because
it's access. Yeah, true.
yeah, it's the assets because I know the other side refused to meet with them. The president and any person from the other factions refused to
The
meet with
president
them.
actually met with Larijani. It's and the prime minister Larijani, and they actually walked by hand in hand. Is the only person who has to meet with Ali Larijani, who is the envoy of Ali Khamenei, the supreme commander of Iran, was the foreign affairs minister. There's a really funny stuff. This is gossip. Seriously, this is gossip. Okay, so Ali
Okay.
Larijani comes on the same day that Tom Barak and basically the U.S. delegation was supposed to come to Lebanon. They delayed until the day after. They came after him. So Rejani comes to Lebanon and he meets with the parliament speaker. He meets with the president, where the president told him, we refuse any intervention in Lebanese affairs, including from the Iranians. He met with the prime minister of Lebanon, where basically Ali Rejani said, we're here to help you with whatever you want, and we're not going to interfere in your internal affairs. And they walked away, like out in front of the holding like each other's hand, like side by side. And it looked like they were lovers, but they're not, of course. I mean, our prime minister doesn't like them. And then he met with the parliament speaker, during which the reporters asked him, are you going to meet with the foreign affairs minister of Lebanon? And the foreign affairs minister of Lebanon belongs to the right-wing group that was buddies with the Israelis during the civil war. That's the Lebanese forces. We call them the Uwat, Lebanese forces, Al-Af short.
Yeah.
And
I think outside Lebanon, we call them, we know the phalanges. Is that the same group?
no, the phalangists are the mother of the Al-Af. The Al-Af, what you call the military of the phalangists, and
Okay.
they dissociated
What?
themselves from the phalangists, and they became a political party of their own. They fought against, like they had skirmishes against each at one point in time.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and I Christian groups as well fought against them, including the former president Michel Aoun. I think
true.
whose son is in power now, I guess.
No,
Is
no,
that the
no,
son?
no.
Is that the son or the brother?
The current Joseph On has the same family name, but it's a different family and different
Oh, so
area.
it's not,
Different
so
area.
it's not related.
No, both are army have the last name On, but each one comes from a different area. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and
Interesting.
they're not related. The funny part is a reporter asks Larijani, will you be meeting with this foreign affairs minister who continues to attack Iran? And he basically keeps what you call calling in the Iranian ambassador Lebanon every other time for questioning, which is really stupid, by the way. So the Ali said have a really tight schedule, and I've met with the presidents, and I do believe basically in the future, if we have time, we will be meeting with other people, like in next visits. He was very diplomatic. He didn't want to meet with them, but he was being very diplomatic. So that same reporter went over and asked the foreign affairs minister, will you be meeting with Ali Larjani? And like, guess what his answer was? Like a kindergarten child. He's like, even if I had time, I will not be meeting with Ali Larijani. It's like, nobody asked you to meet him. Ali Larijani didn't want to meet with you, and he didn't ask for that, basically that appointment. So he sounded really stupid on this one. But it's like, this is the kind of officials we have in the government who are trying to push for the disarmament of the resistance.
Yeah, but what is Israel's real goal in Lebanon? Is it territorial gains? Is it strategic, strategic control? Is it say the, creating a security corridor, control over Lebanon, and then you have other players in the region as well, like France, who are claimed to be a traditional, player in the Eastern Med, have interest in the Eastern Med. Why are the French not doing anything? Just sitting down there and allowing the Israelis to run rampage in the region without any sort of control or pushback whatsoever. So, what is Israel's real goal in the region? And what is France doing? What the hell is France doing just sitting down there like that? Because at the end of the day, if the Israelis continue to push, they will be the main players, in Lebanese politics and not France.
Okay, so the Israelis said openly, and Netanyahu just said it basically about 4 days ago, that they want all of Lebanon. It's territorial gains, but it's not only territorial. They also want to take over what you call the abundance of wealth in the region. The region is sitting on what you call one of the largest
Gas.
natural gas, and basically what you call coast of Lebanon. It's shallow waters. It's not that deep. So it doesn't take that much time to drill, and it doesn't give you problems or any hiccups when it comes to drilling. So it costs less to extract basically gas from there. Same thing goes for Syria, same thing goes for Palestine. So the Israelis want to control the whole coastline of the Eastern Mediterranean region for the abundance of wealth over there, for the geostrategic position of it. I mean, like, think about it perspective, because every single war out there is not only basically just to show off, it's to take over resources and
Resources.
for money. Money and control. Who controls trade routes and the energy routes controls the decision-making process across basically the globe. So the trade corridor from India all the way to Europe passes through the Eastern Mediterranean. Again, that's Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Egypt. Anything, I'm not going to say basically Israel, because I don't believe that the Israeli entity is a real land. It's a fictional state, it has fixed borders. It's not considered a state under international law. So looking at the situation, the Silk Route passes from there. The energy pipelines, which is the American, what you call project, that from the GCC through Eastern Mediterranean to Cyprus and Greece passes through the Eastern Mediterranean. Same thing for what you call the Russian pipelines that goes from east to west. And all of those in the region. So whoever controls that region controls anything that goes back and forth and will make a killing. That's why the Chinese basically, for example, run the port of Haifa, which is owned by the Indians, which the Israelis sold it to them, but it actually belongs to the Palestinians. I mean, it's really funny. And why you find the Chinese, the Americans, the Russians, and the French, the Germans, and the British are fighting over this region. Now, why is France basically trying to get a foothold over here? It used to be the mandate power over Syria and Lebanon. It considers them historically a Francophone country that belongs to it. When the Russians and the Americans are fighting over this region, it needs a piece of the pie because it lost certain interests in Africa. If you remember what happened in Congo, Senegal, among other places, I mean, they call clippings of its wings by Africans, by the Russians, Africans at one point. And I'm not saying a certain nationality because it's multiple nations, including the Sahel state and North Africa as well. So when you look at the whole matter, the French are looking for substitutes for their energy needs and substitute in terms of what you call securing their trade routes from the east to west. So the best thing is to control ports in the Eastern Mediterranean. What did they do? They recently acquired 2 ports in Lebanon, one in Beirut and one in Tripoli. You have a French company, CGM, which is owned by a French Lebanese guy who now runs the port of Beirut and it runs the port of Tripoli in Lebanon. And it's also basically negotiating what you call the Syrians run one of the ports or ports in Syria as well. So by securing that, they will secure at least a foothold in terms of that international trade that passes from there, and they will basically have a piece of the pie without having to fight at any point. I'm sorry, that's my dog over here.
No
I think his
problem.
girlfriend on the 4th floor basically is just skipping
Okay.
out, so he calls her. I'm sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no problem.
So that's the French and their interest in this region. Aside from that, the French also, the French president has much respect on the ground. He has barely any credibility. He wants to show his people that he can still basically be in control, that he's the new Napoleon or something like that. So he needs to be playing with the big guys over here in the region, and nobody's giving him weight, I mean, at the end of the day.